is in. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. This is Ed Rising, and welcome back to Ed's Pop O Matic Podcast, a retro pop culture podcast where everything retro beats anew when you keep it in your heart. And tonight we all have a bit of heartbreak, I suppose, with the news that Brian Wilson, the co-founder of the Beach Boys and who made so much wonderful music that is very much a part of our lives, unfortunately has passed away. And so we would like to get together with the group and talk about Brian and talk about the Beach Boys and how much his music has meant to us and how much Brian has meant to us. And so we have a quite an electric and eclectic group with us tonight. We're gonna
Electrified.
so I'm just gonna do a quick run around of introducing who we have, and we may even have another special guest come in. We'll see how it goes. So we start off with Fred Velez.
Hi, everybody.
Fred Velez, everyone knows Fred. He's written his Monkeys books and he's very big social media presence. We have Gail Bajkowski, who is well known um, on this podcast. She's done quite a few shows with us, and so glad to have you back with us, Gail. Under sad circumstances, but still happy to have you just the same. We have Michael Ventrella. Michael's also an author of many different things. He's a lawyer in his spare time. Uh, good old friend of mine too, and um, good to have you back. And then we have Natalie Palumbo, who is
Hi.
who does a lot of video and a type of graphic type of material for events and so forth. And she can talk to us more about that as we get there. And Daniel Coston, who's a professional photographer and has worked with the Beach Boys. And of course, he's also a recognized producer of various different artists. And amongst other things, I think he also might be a lawyer in his part time. I don't know. He does everything.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll take that. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
if we can, Daniel, can I ask you to talk a little bit about your relationship with the Beach Boys and with Brian?
Sure. Thank you guys all for being here today. Obviously, this is a day that we knew this might happen at some point, but it's nice to face this with friends. I will say that. So I first saw the Beach Boys in 1983. It was a "We're sorry we're moving you to North Carolina" show. My parents took me to the New York State Fair, and so I saw the Beach Boys, and I saw one of Dennis Wilson's last shows. And it's not an understatement. The Beach Boys have been with me my entire life. In 1996, I saw and met the Beach Boys backstage at Farm Aid in 1996, and realized that this photography thing was taking over my life, and maybe I should let it. And from there, I started photographing the Beach Boys, photographing Brian, worked with the Beach Boys on their 2016 tour program, shot their 2012 reunion tour, and shot Brian a number of times, met Brian several times, including the tour he did with Jeff Beck. And the music has always been there. And people say, "What is Brian like?" I said, "If you listen to the music, he's there. He has really left all of his stories, trials, tribulations on his records and all throughout his life, and it's there, and thankfully will be there forever." So while
Yeah.
I am sorry that he's no longer here on this plane, I'm glad he's no longer suffering from what he's been dealing with for many years, and now he lives through all of us. Now the music lives forever. So it's hard to say. Like, people are like, "What did you do today?" It's like, I did 3 events today, and kind of didn't talk about Brian or the Beach Boys until unless I was asked, because I just knew I'd lose my head. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that this music lives on. I mentioned today that the the Sirius XM started their Beach Boys channel on 79, so I've been listening to that all day, running from gig to gig. So yeah, I would say, like, Brian was really nice to me. I always take really amount of pride that the second time I met Brian, David Beard with Endless Summer Quarterly said, "Oh, this is Daniel," and Brian without a beat went, "Yeah, Daniel, I remember. How are you doing, Daniel?" And it's just like, it's your world stops in those moments. It's like, I felt like I'd known this gentleman the whole life, and he's going, "You remembered my name
He
from."
recognizes you. Wow.
He
Yeah.
did,
That's
and like,
Yeah.
amazing.
yeah. Yeah, I always say, like, no matter what you say about Brian, and no matter what, he dealt with a lot throughout his life, but he remembered me in the second and third time I met him. So I do remember that. So
That's wonderful.
yeah.
Wow.
That's a nice memory.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that we think about Brian, and as much as we appreciate his what they call genius for since
Mhm.
1966 or whatever, as a label, he probably did he even mention anything in the work that you did with him about the Genius label? Did anything or be maybe other people around the Beach Boys regarding the Genius label?
I think everybody in the Beach Boys regarded him a genius. Brian was kind of a little embarrassed by that. He just wanted to create and sing music. That was, he wanted to just get on with it, not to his mind, not draw attention to himself.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, it was definitely even. It's been interesting the last several years having worked with both sides of the Beach Boys camps, Brian's camp and the Mike Love Beach Boys camp, that they both spoke of Brian in the same terms. That he was a
yeah,
genius, that he was somebody who dealt with a lot, but still had, up until the recent days. And I did see his last tour in 2012. Sorry, 2022. They spoke of him as like the potential. There was always that. Well, what if he made that one more song, that one more album? It's like, because he changed our lives, for
yeah,
so long. So
right.
yeah, the Genius label was something I don't think he was comfortable with, but it was very prevalent in anyone you talk to.
Well, you would say that there would be more media hype, just like we see with so many other athletes or artists and whatever, is the overhype. And I th- I wonder if that might be something that um that's prevalent there as far as the Genius label that
There's that,
came
but there's
from the media.
well, also there's that feeling of, okay, yeah, you say I'm a genius, but like, have you listened to my new record? Have you listened to what I'm doing now? Brian was always happier creating. He was always happier creating new things. So he was proud of all of his work, throughout.
Right.
So it was like, I think he understood that people, and that was something I actually put to David Leaf in an interview earlier this year with our friend Plastic EP. I said, "Do you think Brian knows how much he's loved?"
Yeah.
And yeah, I highly recommend watching it because it's literally watching questions fall out of my mouth that I had not prepared to say, but something said, "You need to ask this and ask this now." I
Wow.
Yeah.
understand it more today as
Yeah.
what.
I want to get to that. I'm going to attach that
Yeah.
video to
Yes.
this podcast when we get done with it.
Hmm.
And I wanted to. This might be Plastic EP as a matter of fact now.
Hmm.
But
Okay,
as
we'll do that.
as far as the new David Leaf book,
Hmm.
Fred, I believe, has a Kindle version of that.
Hmm.
Fred, can you give me any thoughts on it?
Well, I haven't read it yet. I'm looking forward to it. Well, I was going to read it anyway, and now I definitely want to read it. But I do have a previous Brian Wilson book on Smile that was written by
Oh,
Dominic Priori, I think his name is.
Hmm.
And this was like one of the first books on Smile, on history and everything.
Hmm.
And I was fortunate enough to see the Smile tour
Hmm.
when it was
Oh, wow.
when
Yeah.
Brian uh, rec finally finished Smile in 2004, and I got my little smile button over here.
nice.
And he performed it at Carnegie Hall in New York City, and that's like the absolutely perfect place to have seen him perform that. And he was very engaged, very energetic during the whole show. And that's one of the top shows that I've ever seen, which I've really enjoyed. And if you guys could still find this is the DVD of Brian Wilson's Smile with the documentary about it, about the making of the album. and a full performance of the first performance of the work, the finished work in England that Paul
Yeah,
McCartney attended.
that's
And,
right.
and Van Dyke Parks was in the audience to acknowledge, since he was the co-collaborator on Smile. So this is definitely worth finding and
Yeah,
picking
I
up.
have it. It's a great DVD and a great show. Let me just interrupt, Fred. We have another guest, our friend Plastic EP. Fred, Plastic, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you
Can
doing?
you can you see me?
I can see you. You look
Well,
absolutely fantastic.
well, no one recognizes me without the glasses. How are you, Nat?
We're
Oh, it's
doing
him.
So
okay, Plastic.
I'm walking around and no one knows who I am, and I just want to say, I don't know if you can see from here, but have a look over there. Do you see that mural? Hang on, I'll just get closer. Hang on. Last time I showed you a few things in the car park of McDonald's. Now I'll show you some other stuff. Do you
Please.
see that mural over the road there?
Yes.
Yes.
Indian, do you see it? Yes, no.
Yes.
Yes.
Towards
that's my
towards the left of it. Yes.
That's my favorite coffee shop, right? Can you see it better now? My son did that.
Great.
That's
He's 28. He's
fantastic.
28 years old. He's got so much talent. And somebody asked Vicky, where did he get the talent from? And Vicky said, he got it from me. And I said, do you draw? She goes, no. I said, he didn't get it from you. Now, listen, I just want to say something to everybody out there, all the groovers in the world, right? I found out, I woke up this morning half dead, right? I wake up and I'm having a conversation with Ed because he's asking me, do you want to be on the Brian Wilson like memorial Zoom meeting, right? And I go, I'm thinking to myself, I've just woken up. Brian Wilson just passed away. I mean, what a shit day. And that's
Yeah, I
exactly
know.
how I feel, right? And
Yeah.
then I got a problem with Zoom. I don't know about Zoom, but StreamYard failed me. Zoom has failed me. And that's another thing now that's pissing me right off, right? It's like, I don't know what's going on with technology, but we need a new plastic EP technology.
Mhm.
You remember last time I showed you the plastic white mobile?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the plastic Mercedes-Benz mobile. See that one?
Very cool.
It's all right. It's all right. It's German made. It's okay.
Yeah, it looks
Gets me
very
around,
shiny.
Gets me around, no big deal. I just put 2 new tires on it and I'm waiting for the mechanic. On these cars, there's something called an auxiliary battery, right? And the guy's ordered it and it's been a couple of days and I'm waiting for a phone call. That's why I'm at the cafe so you can go to the passenger side seat and pull out this battery that's 1 foot by 1 foot that when you're driving along, the car stops and starts. And he's got to change that. So that's another thing to do today. And Vicky's at home, and I don't know. I just want to say something about Brian Wilson. Okay,
Please
guy's
do.
a genius. My favorite Beach Boys song of all time. I was under the impression that Al Jardine wrote it, but I was told by David Leaf, because I did a fantastic interview 3 months ago with Daniel Coston about David Leaf's new Beach Boy book. I want everyone to go and have a look at that interview with us. And he talks about it. And now Brian Wilson's passed away. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm in shock. But I just want to ask you, what is my favorite Beach Boys song of all time? I want you each to tell me which one you think it is. I play this song every single day.
Help me,
Who is it?
Rhonda.
Hey?
Help me, Rhonda.
Say it. How'd you know? I think I must have said that in another podcast.
As a wild guess.
No, you remember from last time, all right? Hey, I can't get anything past you guys. It took me half an hour to get on Zoom. So that's another beautiful thing today. Everything. Have you ever? Hey, Nat, have you ever had a day where everything goes wrong?
Sure, many.
Oh, yeah, quite a
Have you
few
ever
times.
had a day, Nat, where everything's gone wrong in your life?
Well, that's Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
I know. Do you have those kind of days?
Oh,
Oh,
all the time. All the
Well,
time.
When I wake up, when I wake up and I'm not wearing my glasses, I'm a normal mortal, right? I'm a mortal. And I don't like being a mortal. Like, Plastic EP doesn't put up with crap. But when I take my glasses off, I have to deal with crap. Yeah.
They just don't know you're in disguise.
There you go.
But it's the first time I think I've done an interview without my glasses. I feel naked.
Kinda
Well,
like
that's
John in
okay.
front of the
As long as you
piano.
get your clothes on, I'm okay, you know?
Yeah, I'm all here. Vicky dressed, you know what I love about Vicky? I get dressed and she turns around and looks at me and goes, "Where you going?" I said, "I'm going out." And she goes, "What, dressed like that?" I said, "I'm only going to the supermarket. There's only 90-year-olds there. What are you worried about?"
Oh well.
That's too much plastic. So anyway, so your favorite Beach Boys song is "Help Me, Rhonda," and you have your interview with David Leaf on David Leaf's book with Daniel. What's the name of the book?
Yeah, Daniel, tell them the name. Come on.
Oh, it's about, I remember it's a long title, but it's about Smile and the resurrection of Brian Wilson. So it's a new book. It's actually a redux of David's book from a long time ago. Please check it out. And please check out the interview that Plastic EP and I did a few months ago. There's a lot of information about Brian and the Beach Boys that we covered in that. Like I said, there was a lot of questions that really just came to mind, and something just said, ask this question. And I'm so glad I did now. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I will add that into the notes for the podcast. So when people upload the video or whatever, they'll be able to find the link for that interview.
Yeah, just do that, because I got to say something. Can you hear me clearly there, Ed?
Yes, I can.
I just want to say you've become a superstar, and I plucked you from obscurity, and look at you now. You're a real star. Hey, Michael Ventrella, how are you? Michael, I'll say later, Michael, I miss the guy.
Hi,
hey, you know we love you and we love Mark.
Yeah, I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, I know, but I'll tell you something. If something ever happens to Plastic EP, I'm sure Vicky will get in contact with Charles Rosen and he'll make the announcement that I'm not here anymore.
Oh, let's not worry about that.
You'll stick around for a while.
We want you around for a long time.
Hey, let me tell you something.
Absolutely.
Hey, listen. Life is reality, and I live reality. You know, I got no complaints in my life after 1,400 interviews. I got these pieces of magic going around the world every single day. I'm missing nothing. I've done some fantastic interviews with all of you, right? Even Nat knows. We even interviewed Joey Mullen. I mean, how big was that, Nat?
Mm-hmm.
It was iconic, and I'm so glad that we had that moment.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? I do interviews with Daniel Coston, and like the people we've interviewed, these bands and people, it's like unbelievable. And I just did an interview now with Michael Lindsay Hogg 3 days ago. I want everyone to see it. Go to Plastic EP Live TV. It's the interview that you must not miss, right? He talks about Let It Be now being released, remastered, whatever. It's on the net. It's history. That interview is history. I suggest you put a link to that from Plastic EP Live TV on YouTube. And let me tell you, in my life, I am blessed. I'm in no competition with anyone. I'm only in competition with myself. And I wake up every day and I just feel blessed. I can't say or do
I
more than
want
that.
you to feel that way, Plastic. Not half dead. I want you to feel blessed. And I want you to promote your stuff. And I thank you for doing that and being here tonight. And today, or whatever, this morning.
Ed, I feel very proud that I found you and plucked you from obscurity. Because everybody I saw that's got talent, even that, right? Just gone leaps and bounds ahead. Well, I'm just saying, I'm not a father figure, but I'm so proud of you guys, which is fair enough. I can say that, can't I?
I can't call you daddy.
I just want to say this before I go, right? You know, I'm only successful because of the people around me that supported the show, and that's something I'll never forget in my life. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart that I love you guys, and I mean that sincerely.
Well, that's why we're all here.
It's like Charles Rosen says, we are part of the Plastic EP family, and we really are. Even Kiddo,
the Plastic EP family continues, you know, in all of our endeavors.
Who do you know that comes up with these classic names? Kid O'Toole, She's No Fool. Nathan Lou, Mr. Shampoo. I mean, who do you know does that? Comes out from
That's
left
you.
field and
That's
knows
you.
exactly what's going on.
Fantastic.
Anyway, today's about Brian. I just want to say, all right, I'm very sad, and his legacy is going to live on through his music. And today I'll make sure that I play Help Me Rondo on my radio, on my car, and turn it up, all right?
Okay, Plastic, sounds good.
You've got other things to talk about, but I'm saying what? I'm really glad that you've done this interview, and it's done straight away, Ed. So to you and everyone there, just keep up the good work, because that's what it's all about. All right?
Thanks, Plastic. Thank you for being on tonight.
Good day.
Send me the link. Send me the link once the interview's done. All right?
I will, Plastic.
You can say goodbye to me now while I go back and have another coffee.
Go for it. Enjoy. Take care.
Bye.
All right. See you, everyone. Love you.
Cheers.
Yeah.
See ya.
So that was important to have a little levity while we talk about someone that we all miss and all gonna miss and so forth. Yes, sir.
Hey, Ed, I'm still here.
You're still here. Do you want me to drop you out?
No, you take me out, but I want to say, you know something about your show that I love? Usually it takes 2 hours to get on, but when you want to get off, you don't let the people go. Let me go.
Okay, I'm going to let you go. All right?
See ya. Bye.
Take
That's
care.
a joke.
Let's see a second how I do this here. Okay, remove.
Yeah.
Yep. There he is.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, to finish the point, excuse me, David Leaf did say yes. I think Brian knew, even at the end of his life, that millions of people cared about him. And it's something that I think that Brian kind of came to terms with later in his life, much in the way that the Monkees did. I saw that happen on the 2012 tour. I think there's something happens in your life and you go, wait, people love what I do and they love me, and that's okay. So I'm take comfort that Brian knew near later in his life that a lot of people cared about him. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's nice to know.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, let me ask you, could you share with us your memories of Brian and the Beach Boys?
Well, my memories aren't going to be as close to some of the rest of you. I'm just a fan. I'm not like one of these people who went to every single concert and read every single book.
So am I.
Although I did buy the Smile CD when that came out and played it quite a bit. When he finally did that. But I have said many times that the greatest rock song ever written is God Only Knows. I just love that song. And I can listen to that over and over again. And I've got like 10 different cover versions on my phone that I play. David Bowie's is wonderful, for instance. He wrote some wonderful, wonderful things. And it was so influential. That's the key. You know, without Pet Sounds, there wouldn't have been Sgt. Pepper, for instance, or it wouldn't have been the same.
Right.
Let's put it that way. So you can't deny his influence on rock music and pop music. And some of his songs are just, you know, there's a reason we're still playing them these days. There's a reason we're still listening to his music. And even the early stuff, you know, even the very simple stuff, even though he was sued by Chuck Berry, you know, even the old stuff that's very simple is still so much fun. You can't deny it. Yeah. I mean, not that he wrote all of that, but still. So I'm
Gail, any thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, well, like Michael said, you know, I come at this as a fan, and the Beach Boys and Brian Wilson have been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. And I've mentioned on previous podcasts, I have older brothers, and my record collection essentially started out as their record collection way back in the late 60s and early 70s. And that's the stuff that I still listen to. So I grew up listening to the Beach Boys, and as a kid, I mean, Good Vibrations was just something I listened to all the time. Thought it was, you know, great song. I liked it. But it was fun as an adult when I started reading more about Brian and the Beach Boys and just 60s music history, how influential that song was and how pioneering it was. And again, what a genius Brian was to come up with something like that I had always just kind of taken for granted. So it's kind of it's amazing to have kind of gone on that journey. And Brian's always been, to a greater or lesser degree, I think, active musically. And I remember when I was in college in the 80s, and he was going through, I think, some of his personal struggles. But but he was still creating and still somebody who was really relevant. And that's really kind of an amazing legacy to leave, the impact that he's had throughout all these years on so many lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Fred, can I ask you to talk with, and we'll all go through it a bit. Talk a little bit about Pet Sounds and a little bit about how Pet Sounds grew out of Rubber Soul
Yeah,
and
I
what your
mean,
impressions were of the album.
well, Pet Sounds. This is the CD version that has both the stereo and mono mixes, and this is the DVD audio of it, which has a little documentary, uh, film documentary about the making of the album. But Pet Sounds, as you said, Brian was inspired by the Beatles' Rubber Soul, and most likely it was the Capitol American Rubber Soul that he heard that inspired him to do Pet Sounds, and he wanted to. He and the Beatles had sort of like a friendly competition, um, in which they basically it was like a conversation. They would say something, then he would say something, and they would say something else, and he would add to that. So that's the way it was. It went back and forth. Then he did Pet Sounds was him uh, working with Tony Asher on the lyrics, and he just wanted to make some really great music. And the Beach Boys were on tour at the time, and so he stayed home. It was after his breakdown and everything, and he just wanted to stay in the studio. And he used the guys that are known as the Wrecking Crew to record all the music for Pet Sounds. And again, just to put emphasis on the historical aspect, the same musicians that worked on Pet Sounds also worked on the early Monkey albums. So um, when the Beach Boys came back from their tour, they were presented with this fantastic music, and all they had to do was put their vocals on it. And in Paul McCartney's words, it was like the perfect album. Um, and that inspired Paul and the Beatles to do Sergeant Pepper. And from Pet Sounds, Brian went to the next thing, which was the Good Vibration single, which is some of the most amazing music you've heard at that time. And from there was the seed for, at the time, the unfinished Smile album. And he, if Brian had gotten Smile done before Sergeant Pepper, who knows, if this would have been the album that everybody would have been talking about in 67. But when the Beatles came out with Sergeant Pepper, he said, well, that's it, the race is over. I can't top that. And he was going, yeah, everybody knows he was going through a lot of his stuff. He was unfortunately gone to LSD, um, which, he regretted it much, much later that he should never have done it. And
Yeah,
the Smile album, he did finally complete it with Van Dyke Parks in 2004.
right.
And I would listen to that and say, wow, if only this had come out
Hmm.
in 1967. Wow. And I'm so
But
glad.
if you think about what he put out in Pet Sounds was so different from what other people were doing with the orchestration. I mean, Yesterday had strings on it, things like that. There were other groups that probably used to some degree, but really think Pet Sounds was like the first album that used more orchestration and odd instrumentation,
And sound effects.
Yeah.
and sound effects, and spoke of a more of a personal, which is there's a twofold thing I want to talk about, because but Pet Sounds, not only was it a tremendous difference in sound, which set the Beach Boys apart from everybody else, and then everybody else like the Beatles had to catch up. But he also wrote a very personal album. Some of his own very own insecurities, like I wasn't made for these times, and so forth. Do you think that the Beach Boys resented Brian because it was less of a band, um, let's have a band
Aesthetic.
statement. Thank you,
Mhm.
as opposed to a personal statement. Natalie, could you share anything with us about your thoughts along those lines?
In terms of the band and their take on Brian Wilson, or
Yeah, for the band, as far as the statement that was being made on Pet Sounds, was it? Do you think that might have helped separate them to some degree?
it depends on who you talk to, who was around the band at the time. One could argue that it could have caused the separation, but you could also argue that Brian kind of made the Beach Boys in a way, at least that sound. As far as I can tell, like there's certain songs that stand out to me. A couple that I were notable to me growing up. I grew up with the best of the Beach Boys, and the two that stood out to me the most were "Wouldn't It Be Nice" and "Little Saint Nick." And let me explain why. Let me explain why. I feel like it should be
Please.
obvious, but so wouldn't it be nice? My parents, first of all, grew up with the best of, loved the music, loved the harmonies of the songs that were on that album. Both my brother and I did. There were certain ones that he loved, especially, and I can get into that in just a minute. But um, wouldn't it be nice? I always related that to my parents because they met when they were teenagers and they always saw themselves as growing old together and being that couple that stays together, and they were planning to stay together as far back as then. And it just makes it all the more um, poignant now that he passed away, because
Yeah,
he was, they were inseparable from 16 onward. And so I always think of them when I hear that. And
sure.
Little Saint Nick stands out to me because one thing my mother would do was she would put together mixed CDs of different holiday tunes so we could play them in the car on the way to the boardwalk, going through light shows. And so I hear that and I immediately go back to being a little kid again,
Yeah.
with the anticipation of the holidays, snow falling, all that kind of wonderful stuff. But you guys are far more knowledgeable of the lore involved with the Beach Boys and Brian Wilson than maybe I am. But my initial take on whether or not um it was Brian versus the Beach Boys, if he caused a riff. I can't say for sure off the top of my head, but all I know is that he made such a major impact with the music he produced. I think that a lot of what he did was ambitious, and that's the lasting legacy of his work.
Can I
Yeah.
say that?
And the fact that he brought joy. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I do remember reading interviews or articles many years ago about this, and the idea was that so many bands find their niche and they stay in it because it's successful. They don't want to change their sound because they're afraid if they try to do something unusual, they'll lose their audience. The Beatles never worried about that, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I read was what Brian was trying to take the Beach Boys in a new direction, and a lot of the rest of the band didn't like that. They were afraid it was not going to be successful. They were afraid, no, people come to hear fun, fun, fun. They come to hear Surf and Safari. They don't want to hear this weird stuff you're doing.
Yeah.
And so there was some arguments there. But of course, the album was successful, and it had like 3 hit singles off of it. So I guess that probably killed their argument. But at the time, from what I remember reading, and you guys might correct me because you read more recent books than I have, that was an issue.
Not just with the band, but also with Capitol Records. The Capitol released a best of 4 months after the release of Pet Sounds, essentially ending the sales of Pet Sounds. Brian was moving so fast and moving so far forward that the only one who could keep up with it was him. Keep in mind, the Beach Boys would be on tour for weeks on end, playing their hits from 64, 65, even their newer material, and come back and listen to these songs. And obviously that continued through the Smile era. I think it took them a while sometimes to catch up to what they were doing and what Brian was doing. So that did, it was a good balance for a while, but ultimately it got harder balance to make work between Brian and the touring Beach Boys.
And also,
And his
it's very hard to play
reputation
some of those songs live. Some of those
Yeah.
songs, especially in those days. Nowadays, you can do all kind of stuff, but at the time, trying to play good vibrations live would have been very difficult.
And if you listen to them during that era, you can tell that it's like, oh wait, we have to do this now with 5 people. Great.
The first time the first time I ever heard good vibrations, I was a little kid, and I had the Cowsills live album, and they played good vibrations, and that's the first time I heard it. And I thought it was a Cowsill sound at first, and they did it live, so I figured, but that was like in the 70s, I guess, so it was a little bit different.
Cowsills kind of introduced a bunch of people. Like the Cowsills covered "Walk Away Renee"
Yeah.
on their live album, and I know a lot of people know that version even better than the Left Bank version. So, yeah, it's just where you come in and what what draws you in. So yeah.
So funny you mentioned the Cowsills, because I remember growing up with Beatles sing-along tapes, and I want to say that there were members of the Cowsills that put those together.
I know that the Cowsills did covered some really nice songs in some of their albums. I also steer people towards Stack of Tracks, which it's easier to find now online. But in the middle of 67, 68, the Beach Boys released an album that's just all instrumentals, encouraging the listener to sing along or have karaoke parties with the Beach Boys. But for us, it's wonderful because we can hear the tracks. We can hear the backing without the vocals. And anything Beach Boys I've devoured my entire life. So more. But I do I'll tell people please check that out because it's really fascinating and also to hear the instrumental backings of the Beach Boys from 63 to 66, 67. Yeah.
Wow.
Just amazing from that time period and that little square or whatever you want to call it in the 60s that you had all this creativity going on with the Beatles, the Beach Boys, the Monkees, Rolling Stones, the Cowsills, all that creativity going. There was something in the water, definitely. And it's just fantastic that all this fantastic music was just in that little pocket of a moment.
Yeah, I made that point in my Monkees book. It's like there was no period in our history where music changed so dramatically from like 64 to 70. And just in those 6 years, everything happened. It's amazing.
I just did a TV documentary with a station here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they were like, "How do you describe the '60s?" And I said, "We went from I Want to Hold Your Hand to Sgt. Pepper in 3 years."
Yes.
Right there.
Exactly.
Right there.
Yeah.
Hi.
Well, if you listen to some of the influencers for Brian, which was Phil Spector and Phil Spector's arrangements, his production style, all of the instrumentation that he used, the additional voices and so forth, and of course, he was a big harmony guy, right? Where the Four Freshmen was his big influence as a young person. So if you look at all that, and you look at how 60s music progressed through the years, and even if it wouldn't be necessarily rock and roll, like Burt Bacharach. If you look at Burt Bacharach and you see all the stuff that he did going into the later 60s and 70s and all the different sounds that you heard, why not put it on my album? Why not? Why not use orchestration? Why not use horns and so forth?
Right.
What I'd like to do next is ask you towards the end of the podcast to do some kind of a top 5, if you can, of some of your favorite Beach Boys and Brian Wilson songs. Doesn't have to be 5, but if you got 2 or 3 or whatever 5 you want to come up with, and you can just share with us regarding those. Also, if there's any other particular works that Brian has done through the years, if you'd like to share with us a little bit about that, that'd be nice. I think I'm going to start off on doing that. I've involved myself in Brian's solo works, and Fred mentioned earlier in the podcast that he had been able to see the Smile Tour, which I guess was 2004, 2005?
2004.
2004 at Carnegie Hall, which must have been an absolutely amazing thing to see and hear. But when I saw the Lucky Old Sun tour in 2008 or 2009, he did that at a much smaller space called the Westbury Music Fair here out in Long Island, New York. And it was when Brian had made with Van Dyke Parks an album called Lucky Old Sun, which is based around uh, poetry and spoken word, and of course, Brian's songs, and a tribute to California. And I remember taking my brother to the concert, and we go to the concert, and I'm trying to explain to him what he's going to see. And I said, well, this is all about California. He says, Ed, everything Brian Wilson has ever written about was California.
Oh, just a correction. The album is called the Orange Crate Art.
That's another one, yes.
Another
That's the one.
Yeah.
Lucky Old Sun, I think, as a solo Brian Wilson.
Right, that's a solo album. But Van Dyke Parks also did Lucky Old Sun with him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I happen to love that album because it's very Smile-esque. He had done the Smile project, so I guess he felt liberated that he could do something along those veins, along that style. And it's if you have not heard the album, or if you haven't heard it in years, I would strongly recommend it. You can find it on the streaming places like Spotify or YouTube even, and things like that. The Lucky Old Sun album is really, really good. It's something I really enjoy. And you get a good bit of Brian's personal life in there, that he talks about, his mental breakdown and breaking down and coming back to life again. And it's quite beautiful. Really is a very good piece of work. Gail, can I come back to you and ask you if you have a favorite Brian Wilson solo record or a Beach Boys album that you particularly like?
I'm not real familiar with Brian's solo work, but I always have listened a lot to Summer Days and Summer Nights, and then
I love that album.
Yeah, there's so many good tunes on that. And the other, I think it was Live in '65, the concert album. I like that one a lot. Favorite songs are kind of a lot of the ones everybody likes. The old standbys like Good Vibrations, California Girls. I really like Caroline No, which is something that for whatever reason has stuck with me for a long time. And with a lot of these songs, I liked them, but the more I've listened to them, the more I've learned about them and learned about Brian and his talent and production techniques. I just have greater and greater appreciation over the years for them. And I have to give partial credit to I'm Bugged at My Old Man on Summer Days and Summer Nights. As a kid listening to that, I was like, what the heck? How does this end up on an album? Is this for real? Credited, I believe, to what is it? Too Embarrassed to on the lead vocal. But yeah, it's again, it's kind of the standbys and Surfing USA, the good old Fun in the Sun type tunes that honestly have just stand the test of time.
Mentioning Caroline No, if you have a chance, go to check it out. Brian Wilson's album that he released in 1988, he put out a song on there called Baby Let Your Hair Grow Long, which is sort of an updated version of Caroline No. An absolutely amazing song. So that's kind of like a companion piece to that. So I would suggest you check that out. Michael?
Well, what I did was I pulled up my phone to look at all my Beach Boys songs on my phone that I had to remember everything. There's the Monkey's Uncle, but I don't know if that listed one of my top 5.
Gotta get the monkeys in there.
The Monkey's Uncle, there you go. My obviously, I already said that God Only Knows is my favorite, clearly. I will add another point about California Girls, because that is just such a, especially considering when it came out. It has some unusual chord changes. It has some unusual tempo changes that were unusual at the time and really are still very, very catchy. Oingo Boingo does a wonderful cover of it, by the way. It's very strange, but that's Oingo Boingo for you.
Mhm.
But also, I like, I like the weirder stuff like Heroes and Villains and Good Vibrations,
Mm-hmm.
where it changes a lot and there's all kind of stuff going on, so you never get bored. There's always something else happening. So those are
Yeah.
the ones I would, off the top of my head, what I could think of that I would really definitely want to mention. Along with, I mean, there's too many. Wouldn't it be nice is wonderful, and okay, I don't want to go on. I'll start naming them all.
Okay. Natalie, anything? You mentioned a few of them, but is there particular songs that you like? And
Yeah, there's a couple more that stand out to me. One in particular is Surfin' Safari, which for some reason I have an older brother with low verbal autism, and we're buddies, and we both listened to the music growing up. And for some reason, Surfin' Safari just makes him giggle. I don't know what it is, but he just laughs every time he hears it. It just makes him
mm,
happy. And another one, and it was very like it hit a different chord for me when my family moved to the southeast. We were far away from friends, family, and the familiar for a long time. Sloop John B. That was one that stood out because the meaning changed completely when we were so far away from everything familiar. And we're just, I'm glad that we came back north where, everyone is family,
I've
friends.
always
Huh?
I've always wondered about that. I mean, he didn't write that song.
Right.
Was he involved in that much? I mean, was that his choice to do?
That was a folk song that was brought to him by El Jardine.
Oh,
He'd
wow.
heard that on a Kingston Trio record. And to Brian's credit, he really rearranged the song and made it a Beach Boys song. But it's essentially it's a folk song. I think it's considered traditional arrangement, something that's been passed down. I think it's at least 100 years old. But somehow, shows up on Pet Sounds as a Beach Boys song.
I had no idea of the legacy it had.
Mhm.
That's incredible. That kind of reminds me of Shimmy Like Kate. That's another one that I found out had a long history starting from the 1920s onwards. I love when songs have that.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
If you've never heard the Beatles version of Shimmy Like Kate at the Star Club, I highly recommend that because they are
Yes.
rocking that out. Oh my gosh.
The
That's
Olympics
great.
version too. That one's really good. That's what influenced that one.
Yeah.
Fred?
Okay, first I want to put everybody's attention to this album, The Wilsons. That's the
Yes.
Wilson sisters, two-thirds of Wilson Phillips, Carney um, and Wendy,
Wendy.
right? And it was produced by Brian, and he sings on some of the songs. So he joins his daughters on this record.
Yeah,
So
it's a good
this is probably a
record.
lost Brian Wilson album. So I would definitely search this one out, folks. This is really great. Anyway, regarding the songs that I like from the Beach Boys, it's hard to pick just five. There's tons, but I'm going to start from the bottom up, starting with a Brian Wilson song, "Love and Mercy," from his first official solo album. I've always liked that song. I liked it the first time I heard it. And I always loved that Brian used that as the closer for all his solo concerts. The next one, "Warmth of the Sun," which he wrote after learning of the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And while he doesn't mention John F. Kennedy in the song, the feeling that he was feeling, the feelings that he was feeling at when he heard the news sort of are conveyed in that song. So if you really listen to the song, you can kind of get where Brian was getting at. Good Vibrations, a classic, one of the greatest songs of all time, the Pocket Symphony. um, this is one of my favorite early Beach Boys songs. I Get Around. I listened to that
Yes.
so many times in this when I was in summer camp. They played on the radio next to the Beatles and Four Seasons and Supremes all the time. So that stuck in my mind. And then number one has to be God Only Knows, a
Yeah,
perfect song.
fantastic song.
Mhm.
Beautiful. Thank you, Fred. Daniel, would you like to share?
I'm gonna switch from singles to albums. That please,
Okay.
people check out. Obviously, Pet Sounds, surprise. Smile, particularly the Smile Sessions album that came out in 2018. You can hear
Fantastic. Yeah.
well, just really hear what was in Brian's head. That's as close a thing we're gonna get to what Smile might have sounded like. I love Sunflower, which is the album, which is probably the best band album that the Beach Boys made. But there's some amazing Brian songs. I also recommend side two of Surfs Up with Until I Die and Surfs Up. I mean, the album closers don't get better than that. You mentioned Brian Wilson's solo album, which also has Rio Grande and some really amazing songs of his. Some of my favorite Beach Boys covers are on an amazing record called the Langley Schools Music Project. It was a record, it was done by schools in Canada in the 1970s. It's 20 to 30 kids singing songs from the 60s and 70s, and there's several Beach Boys covers on it. Hearing them do God Only Knows, You're So Good to Me, with this gymnasium reverb that they recorded it with, it's just like, yeah, this is why we love the Beach Boys. This is why we love Brian, because it just gets to the heart of these songs and how beautiful they are. And going back to your point about Spector, in some ways I felt like Brian actually out-Spectored Spector. Brian brought the production techniques, but he also brought the heart. He also brought the emotion that sometimes even Spector was almost purposely a little up here. You couldn't touch it. But this was what that was Phil. But Brian was something else. So again, listen to all these things. Listen to Friends. So if you had asked Brian what his favorite records were, he would have mentioned Pet Sounds, but he would have mentioned Love You. He would have mentioned the Beach Boys' Love You, which is, he said that over and over again was his favorite record, and he would have mentioned Friends. So please, there's so much good Brian music you can check out.
Okay, thank you, Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things to check out and to think about.
Well, you got
When
to
I
keep
think
in mind,
about, yeah, I'm sorry, Fred, go ahead.
there is one last Brian Wilson album that he recorded a couple years ago, which is his last album, At My Piano, which is just him on the piano, no singing, no other vocals, just playing the piano on those Beach Boys
Right.
songs.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
other
yeah.
instrumentation. And
Yeah.
I've never heard that one. I haven't heard that one.
that was his last album.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that was his final statement. I think
yeah.
he just, for that one, he just let the music do his talking. So
And
I
it's very much
recommend
solo,
that.
yeah, very much solo piano. And his version of God Only Knows on that is just amazing. So yeah,
A
please
great
check that out. Yeah,
I like No Peer Pressure. That was a nice one.
that's a good
He
one.
did some collaborations with different people, and it was very enjoyable record. There's a track with Elton John, I think, on that record. Am I thinking about that album? Or am I thinking about the
Thinking about
one he
another
did
one.
years earlier? He did
He
one
did one
years
with Paul
earlier with
McCartney.
Elton John, and that was pretty good.
Also mentioned that's what God made the radio. That's why God made the radio in 2012. I mean, there's some notable songs, but at the end of it, which is kind of like Brian's return to his Beach Boys suite with "Summer's Gone." The end of the album. That's just amazing.
That's a whole so from Strange. Was
Mhm.
that Strange Magic? No, Strange
Yes,
something. Strange
Yeah,
World. It's a strange world.
yeah,
And so from that whole suite, absolutely amazing. It's actually a very good album overall.
it is.
I
It really is.
love that album.
Yeah,
And I'm very proud that the Beach Boys put that together and that Brian put that suite together. Because I absolutely love Summer's Gone. Oh my God.
hmm
that's a heartbreaking song when you hear
Beautiful.
it.
It's a
really
gorgeous,
is.
gorgeous,
Um,
gorgeous album.
And
I'll
I'm
tell you
glad.
guys. Go ahead. Go ahead, Fred.
Oh, yeah, this is the DVD of the 50th anniversary of the Beach Boys with all the surviving members.
Yeah, yeah,
With
yeah.
David Marks. And I'm glad I got to see this show at the Beacon. That's the only time I saw the Beach Boys in concert, and I'm glad I got to see this show. And
Wow, I never got a chance to see the concert. Yeah.
Yeah,
Fred, you need to open a museum, for all
yeah,
this.
seriously.
Yeah, all your stuff, Fred. Oh my God.
Yeah,
It's
I saw
incredible.
that tour on the seventh date. I saw him in Raleigh, and the venue was being, let's just say, a pain. about I had to take my camera away and put it out in the car and all this other stuff. And I'm sitting there and they've given us 7th row center tickets. And I'm sitting there going, if I don't sneak my camera back in, I'm going to regret this the rest of my life. So I ran out to my car and stuck my camera body and my lenses in my socks and like undid my shirt so they wouldn't notice that lenses in my back pocket too. And basically, remember the line in Shawshank where they say nobody ever looks at a man's shoes? I walked so fast through it so nobody would notice that I had these bulges coming out of my socks. And I photos the second half. So I got pictures of Brian up front playing bass, final bows, and I was just like, sometimes or without knowing, like, this is a moment. This is something that you will not witness again. Go do it, and you won't regret it. And man,
I'd love to see those
I
pictures,
know
Daniel.
the
Is there?
feeling, and I want to see those photos
You
too.
want to see them?
I'll send them to you guys. Yeah, it was everything you'd hope for and more. So yeah, and I'll tell you too that there's everybody around me had like video cameras. They didn't get any stick. Somehow I did with the still camera. But I was just like, well, you know what? It's the Beach Boys. There's Brian, there's Mike. I'm gonna go get my camera.
Did they ever release any kind of a book or anything?
They released a live album from that tour. It's
Right.
worth checking out. It is sadly auto-tuned, which was kind of due to their producer at the time, Drew Thomas. I know that they taped multiple shows on that tour, and I hope more of those come out down the road. I'll tell you something I never thought I'd witness. I was lucky enough to end up in an interview situation or a hangout situation with Mike Love the night before, and he's like, "Oh yeah, they had just recorded Do It Again ahead of recording." That's what got me that's why I got him at the radio. So he's telling me this, and I'm sitting there going, "Oh my God, it's happening again. This is actually going to happen." And that was such a thrilling moment that whole year to watch it, kind of like coming, from a slight distance, going, "This is really going to happen again."
Wow,
So
that's incredible.
yeah,
It's great to have been inside that, Daniel.
Thank you. It was
Very, very fortunate, and I'm glad that you had that experience.
I've got to recommend.
Immortalize that moment.
Yes, definitely. Got to recommend catch the Beach Boys documentary on Disney Plus, because that's the last time all the surviving Beach Boys were together, and they are at the cliffs that the cover of the first Beach Boys album was filmed,
photographed.
Photographed. So it's so they had all Brian, Mike, Al, Bruce, and David Marks. So that is a documentary definitely worth seeing, just to see them all together for the last time.
Yeah, we did a podcast on the Disney documentary. It's on my YouTube page. Maybe I'll even put a link to that as well. But with when we get this one ready to go, yeah. So I enjoyed that too, and I'd like to just share a little bit about songs that I love. Now, as far as the Beach Boys album outside of Pet Sounds and Smile, the Beach Boys Today, which is sort of an accompanying album to the one that Natalie mentioned, the one that Gail mentioned.
Yeah,
Summer Days and Summer Nights. It's a tremendous record. Yes. Beach Boys Today, and this is where you have songs like Please Let Me Wonder in the back of my mind, Kiss Me Baby, tremendous harmonies and very emotional moments, whether it's about your relationship with somebody or just your own feelings, your own insecurities or whatever. And Brian was always very good about doing that in his songs. And so in my top group of songs, I would have to definitely put In My Room. Right? In My Room is a beautiful song for anyone that really felt that he was alone or she was alone, and you really don't know who you can talk to or share your innermost feelings with. I always love that song.
And even there's a Beatles connection, because on the first Beatles album, Please Please Me, there's a song, There's a Place, and it's almost their version of In My Room.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah, it's a good, very good thought. Yeah. But I love that. I love "Kiss Me, Baby." And I think it's also one of Brian's favorite songs too. We would talk about that a bit, and because of that, I kind of went into um looking at Beach Boys albums and so forth, and trying to find that particular song, and I didn't realize it was on the Beach Boys today. Yeah, I should have just gone right to that album, but it's a really good one. So that one has been a favorite of mine for a long time. And of course, I love "Wouldn't It Be Nice" and "God Only Knows," and they mean a lot to me through the years. And I just like the fact that Brian's put a lot of himself into the music, and I don't mean to cheat the other Beach Boys, because you find it in Dennis's music.
Hmm.
You find it in Carl in some of his solo work.
Mhm.
Mike has his own way of doing things, not necessarily personal. That's okay. That's his way. Al Jardine has put out some nice music over the years, and he's been very good touring with Brian in recent years. My last time I saw Brian in concert a number of times. He did a concert here in Queens, New York. Um, I was very fortunate to be in an auditorium, like a school auditorium actually,
Wow.
and he was on there in piano. I was about 5 rows in, and he was engaged that night. The band was great. Al Jardine's son was with them. Um, it was a great concert, and he seemed to really be enjoying himself. I saw him again a couple of other times. Maybe he wasn't as healthy as you'd hope he would be. But then he did a show in 2022, as I think Fred mentioned earlier, that tour. He played over in Huntington, New York, and it was at the Paramount. And it was a great, great show. I got a chance to see that with my friend Lou, and he was tremendous. And I think that Blondie Chapman was with him that night. It was just enjoyable. So good to see him being able to appreciate the audience, and the fact that the audience loved the music, and they love him and they appreciate him. And he was able to get that love back from the audience after all the trials and tribulations that he went through, in which he couldn't be on stage. And now, in his later years, he was able to do it. And I'm so glad that he was able to have that experience. Whether it's something I'm projecting onto Brian from my own feelings or not, I'm glad that he had it. And I'm so glad that I had Brian's music in my life, and it'll always be there. But it's
Hmm.
sad that we've now lost him.
Yeah,
I saw that. Yeah, go ahead, Fred.
I'm glad that the last time I saw Brian was at Westbury Music Fair some years ago when he toured with Jeff Beck,
Saw
and that was an incredible show. And Brian was with Al Jardine and David Marks. This was not too long after the 50th anniversary tour, and for whatever reasons, Mike Love squelched the rest of that tour and just went out as the regular Beach Boys open
Yeah.
show, you know. But Brian kept David Marks and Al Jardine, and he went out with them, and he joined Jeff Beck, and you have two legends right there. You got
Yeah.
so I'm so glad I got to see Brian for the last time then. And you mentioned David, Dennis Wilson definitely picked this up. Pacific Ocean Blue, Dennis's only solo album. This is the 2 CD version, which has the proposed second album on there, Bamboo. So pick this up. Brian was not the only genius in this group, you know.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, Fred.
Yeah, I saw that tour with Jeff in Atlanta, 2013. I was this close to getting to do pose shots with all four of them, because they were looking to make, it was originally going to be a much larger thing they're going to do with Jeff, and sadly that didn't happen. But I do have somewhere, I have a photo of myself with all of them backstage, which was pretty cool. But Jeff was everything you'd you'd expect, which was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm so glad I got to see that. My favorite Beach Boys show, or sorry, the Brian show, was in 2015. He played the Fox Theater in Atlanta, and you know, Brian would have his good nights and his bad nights, depending on where his head was.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I thought about this on the 2022 tour that like you're looking at a gentleman who 60 years ago tried to get off the road with the Beach Boys. He
Yeah.
tried to jump off the road December '64. So the fact that we got to see him nearly 6 years later is kind of a miracle. But in Atlanta, he was talking to the audience. He did Surfs Up. 10 minutes of the film. You're like, oh my, and I'm in the Fox Theater in Atlanta, which is this amazing old movie palace. And it was just like, this is the closest thing to heaven I'm going to experience.
I
Uh,
I
yeah.
still
Yeah.
I still remember when I saw the Smile concert in Carnegie Hall. During the encores, he did a small batch of Beach Boys songs like Fun, Fun, Fun. And he was amazing because he was so engaged and he was so energetic. He was dancing when he was playing the bass. You
Yeah.
know, that's how engaged he was.
That's great.
So I'm so glad I have those memories of Brian, and God bless his sweet memory.
I saw on the Pet Sounds tour, they put the bass on him, and suddenly, like, he just starts smiling. It was just like, oh man, there he is. That's
Mhm.
him. Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
Brian.
Yeah.
I think Michael has to get going, so we're going to say goodnight to Michael, and I'm going to ask you, Mike, just to give us a little bit about where the people can contact you and books and so forth. If there's a
Well,
website, and I can put that into the notes also. But
well, thank you. I'm sorry, my wife is just getting over her surgery, and I need to go take care of her.
Oh, of
Um,
course.
I didn't expect to talk this long. Basically, you can find me at michaelaventrella.com. And for this group that's watching this, I have 2 books about the Monkees and 1 book about the Beatles. If you're into this kind of music, you should like those books. Thank you, everyone.
cool. Michael, thank you, and best to hi to you, right?
And,
Thank you very much. I
Hope
appreciate
she
and
it.
gets
Michael, good to
better.
see you again. I've missed you. Yeah.
Yes, good to see
Good
everybody.
to see you again.
Okay, cool. All right. So, I just wanted to make a comment about um what was the album I was just thinking about? Oh yes. So when he did, there was the film made in 2016. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but in 2016, his life was put in. His biopic was released called Love and Mercy, which essentially talked about his marriage with Melinda, and who unfortunately passed last year. And it's very weird how in a lot of cases people of one spouse passes away, the other spouse may leave also pass away not too long afterwards. But I'm also glad about the fact that he had found her in his life, that she was able to help him um, through the therapy issues with Landy, who was misusing him. Um, and to give him hope for a future, and to encourage him to get out and do his music and so forth, and to be free and to be with his family and so forth. A lot of the things that he was being restricted by due to his therapy with this guy Eugene Landy, um, and so a lot of credit has to be given to Melinda Wilson,
Mhm.
who we also miss. So I just wanted to share that. And there was a beautiful song that is on the soundtrack album for the movie, and I think it's also on the No Peer Pressure album. Um, Daniel, do you remember the name of the song? I don't have it offhand.
I don't. I really need to. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was an amazing movie to watch, but it was definitely hard
yeah,
for me because I knew so much about that story.
yeah. But I would definitely recommend you going out and finding that film. Find the Smile, uh, the Smile documentary
Mhm.
and performances. That's an incredible thing to watch.
It might be Love
Uh,
and Mercy, the song Love and Mercy, because I know it shows up in the movie as well as the
Yeah, but
soundtrack.
there's also a song he wrote to Melinda
Mhm.
that's
And
about their life together, and it was really beautiful.
and if you saw
Yeah,
Brian the last several years, he would close with that show. Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
sorry,
he
with
would
that
close.
song. He would
He
close
always
with Love
closed
and
with Love
Mercy.
and Mercy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. And one more thing about I guess that's pretty much about it. I just wanted to run that by. I want to thank everybody for being on tonight. Ed, let's just run by with Gail. Could you share with everybody how people can reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm just a fan. I'm not the one who writes the books, but I'm the one who's buying all your books. So, but I'm on Facebook, Instagram, social media. Anytime there's chat about 60s and 70s music, pop culture, TV, I'm probably there.
And that's why she's here.
And that's why I'm here.
And
Instead.
and I'm so glad. Thank you, Gail. Natalie, can you share about your work, please?
Sure. So my background is in motion graphics and visual effects compositing. And if you're going to be in Chicago coming up, I'm going to be presenting my visual presentation of Tom Frangione's interview with Wings drummer Jeff Britton. That's coming up in August.
Cool.
So that's the second one that we've worked on so far. There's two. There's Tug of War, which is his interview with Sir Paul McCartney. And then the next one, the second one, which is Jeff Britton. So I'll be presenting that. So if you're in the Chicago area, if you're going to be at the Vesper Beatle fans, I'll be there. I'll be presenting alongside Tom Frangione. If you want to reach me on social media, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky. I also have a website, natalieapalumbo.com, if you want to check out my motion graphics and VFX work. And I'm happy to be a part of this.
And it's really good graphics work. It's beautiful. There's two beautiful presentations. And I was fortunate to see the Tug of War presentation at least twice over the last couple of fests for Beatles fans, and then the one for Jeff Britton. I didn't get to see the whole thing because of the way everything was scheduled, but I did get a chance to enjoy it and listen to Greg and see Natalie's graphics and Tom Francione's narration. It was really wonderful.
Thank you.
Fred?
Yes. You get my books, A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You, The Monkeys from a Fan's Perspective, and A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You too, The Monkeys from International Fan Perspectives. You could get them both on print and Kindle on Amazon.com. You could check out my you could find me on Facebook, Instagram, X, and on MeWe, and check out my website, freddypop.wordpress.com, for a lot of my monkey articles and stuff. You could also order my autographed copies of the monkey books on there. But if you just want to get the printer Kindle book on its own, Amazon's your best place to go. And just want to say one more thing regarding Brian. Brian, just want to say that God only knows how much we love and how much we're going to miss you.
Beautiful, Fred.
Well
Thank you
said.
very much.
Mhm.
And Daniel?
So I've released 4 books since the last time I was on this show. Because why not? 2 of which are books specifically with musicians and artists from the 1960s. It's called My Flash on You, volumes 1 and 2. Volume 1 includes an interview with Ann Moses, specifically talking about her interviews and interaction with the Beach Boys during the 1960s. It's a really fascinating interview, and I was glad to finally put that in print for the first time. And so I'm doing that. I'm still producing records. I'm continuing to work with the Chad and Jeremy archives, which I hope to tell you more about soon, and another really crazy cool project, as well as a couple of things I'm working on. Still photographing a whole bunch of folks who'll be traveling up north this summer for a few different things. As always, danielcoston.com, Daniel Coston Photos on Instagram, and Daniel Coston on Facebook, and Brian Wilson Forever. Love and mercy.
Love and mercy.
Thank you, Daniel. That's beautiful. Thank you. So my listeners and watchers, it's Ed Rising. You can catch me out on Facebook. You can go to Yahoo. Not Yahoo. You want to go to YouTube? I don't know. I'm getting confused. Go to YouTube and type in Ed Rising or Ed's Pop O Matic Podcast, and you can find a bunch of videos that'll show up. The ones that we've done on the Beach Boys, the ones that I've with a lot of these guests, and a lot of other ones that we've done on music through the last couple of years. and we've got a whole bunch of more stuff that's coming up. But we just released a podcast today about Beatles authors who are women, podcasters and educators and so forth, and listening to them and discuss getting the appropriate credit, because a lot of times they are passed over, and so we wanted to do something about that. So that's something, if you check the YouTube page, you'll find that. You can find it on Facebook if you'd like. And I want to thank you guys for all being on with us tonight as we talk about Ryan and remember his music and always listen to it, and how the special, unique person that he was. So, love and mercy to all. Good night, everyone. And thank you very much for being here.
Take care. Bye bye.